Yeah, 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 yeah. Welcome to me casa, make yourself at home, do your do. Welcome to my pad, this your lab, go create your movie. I got a crib.
What's good, everybody? Welcome to 99 Miles Per Hour with me, your host, Percy Garner. Appreciate you tuning in. If you're on Facebook or YouTube or anything like that, on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure we got to say that every time. And appreciate a 5-star rating and a review on the Apple Podcast. And if you do, we will read one. Josh posted one, so we're not going to read that because that doesn't count. But I appreciate everybody who's done it so far. We do have a special guest who is from the area. We're back in the Tuscarawas County, Carroll County area, and we got a good one. So I can't wait to introduce him. But I do want to make sure you guys check out all the podcasts on the Get Level Pod network. So that would be, you can find them at getlevelpod.com, and you can actually listen to the podcast right from there if you don't have a podcast app to yourself. But yeah, that was quick and short and sweet. Was that good? That was good. All right. Let's get to our guest here. So our guest is a new type of career that we have in here, and I'm really excited because I know nothing. And I always was intrigued by this. So maybe I can learn something. Maybe I'll switch up careers. I'm joking. Good
luck with that.
But no, our guest here, has had a long career, and he has a big following on Facebook, and played little sports back in the day, and but now he's definitely making his mark in the reporting world, and a lot of it, I guess, is what a lot of my friends dreamed of. Daniel went to school for this and then ended up not doing it, but maybe we'll see him on ESPN or something someday. But our guest we have in here today is Jordan Miller. And man, it's a pleasure having you in here. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. I really appreciate you guys having me here, inviting me out earlier this week, and we're able to get things rolling pretty quick.
Well, I do have to give props to who brought me to your attention. That is Amanda Lutz. I always say her maiden name. Sorry, Ken. I know you're her husband. I'm sorry. But Amanda basically put you on my radar, I want to say maybe a couple months ago, basically when we started this. And, I did some research, and I was like, this guy is for real. So I was like, let's have him on. And I appreciate you being willing to, and it's kind of short notice. So we had a little phone interview, so I got to, talk to you and meet you a little bit. But I just basically just like, what's going on with you right now as we speak with work and just family? And it seems like you got a lot of stuff going on.
I do. I'm busy. I'm with my family all the time, which is obviously number one, and work comes number two. But I'm fortunate to be able to do what I love, but still have that family time right now.
Nice. And I guess how yours works, because I know you've been in TV and always reporting too, but how's that from home, and how has COVID really affected that?
It's different. It really is different, because instead of being able to just show up some places to talk to people to, get an interview, well, now I have to rely on technology. We know technology it's a great feature, but it isn't always the best feature.
Yeah, it's not as sure as standing in front of somebody.
Yeah, so I'm not going to lie. It's nice to be able to wake up and put on a suit top and not put on any pants, though. But so that makes it nice, but it is challenging but convenient at the same time.
Yeah. I share a lot of that, those sentiments with you, because basically I'm outside sales, so I really wasn't in the office much anyways. But not being able to interact with people one-to-one and just getting in front of people kind of hurt for a while, and I think that's been the effect for a lot of people. But so about your family, I think I just heard some news. You said that you're engaged or something.
Yeah. I guess the secret's out of the bag. No, we've been together 6 years, and nice. So COVID kind of sped up the engagement process, because I had this big elaborate thing planned out for her college graduation, but we had to go ahead and do something with a small thing on Easter with our family. So it was nice.
Oh, okay. Well, COVID has helped a lot of people get out of some shells, but it's also put a damper on a lot of things. And, that's something I even thought about. I know about the the college students and the high school athletes and all that stuff, it's been hurting. But, you know, you never really think about, you know, the things those are things, memories you and your wife are going to share forever. And of course, she is probably just happy that you proposed, but it would have been great to, you know, especially if you would have shared that with everybody.
Oh yeah, it's a tough time right now. You know, she just started her first big girl job. She's a teacher, so
okay,
and she's a dance coach at a school, so she's right in the thick of it from all types of points.
Okay, dang, yeah. So I know we got a lot of those here. The dance, I know the dance coach we have here, she's one of my friends. And that goes, especially nowadays, because they're doing a lot of the dances that, you know, that we see on the social media and Fortnite and stuff like that. So, you know, I might have to bust out some dance moves on here. Josh, can you dance? He says no. What about you? You dance?
No, I don't take pride in it. I can dance, but not with rhythm. Not with the rhythm.
All that matters is if you do it, then you can dance. I mean, technically, right? But I used to dance back in the day, but now, you know, the knees and, you know, I'm getting a little big, and that's what brought us to your engagement. That's how I kind of squeezed that out of you. But, you know, no longer, I think I brought up my weight last episode, so we're not going to talk about that. But let's get into basically, I guess, your career and just the path you took to get where you're at, because I'm very curious about that. So you did start, well, let's start with what made you kind of get into it, because you said you started as a sports editor in Carrollton. So what made you kind of get into that?
When I was in high school, you know, I played sports, but I was always into photography as well. So when I wasn't playing a sport, and if it was an off season, I would take photos, because I always loved taking pictures, and I always wanted to do stuff with the newspaper. And I was about 19, and the local sports editor retired after about 25 years, I think. Wow. And I was 19. They went through the interview process and ended up hiring me at the end of it. So it was one of those things that I was essentially right out of high school, and I got my dream job then.
Wow. How many people can say that? I mean...
Yeah, no, I was very fortunate and able to still do it in my hometown, which was big.
Nice. Yeah. So in your hometown is Carrollton, but explain, I guess, growing up and where you were growing up, because I know when we talked, you spent some time out of the state of Ohio. So just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I lived in Lorain, Ohio till I was about 5. My parents and I, as well as my grandparents, we all moved to DC for their works. Bethesda, Maryland is right outside of DC, which I loved it in that area. It was big, it was diverse, it was ever changing. And then the recession hit in 2008, 2009, and I was 12 or 13, and we all moved back to Ohio because the cost of living here is just totally different than it was living up there.
Yeah.
So we moved here when I was 13, and it was an eye-opener, because I went from a school that was 45% minority out there to 0.05% minority based where I went to school, and that 0.05 was me and my siblings.
Oh wow!
So it was real small, but it was one of the things you had to make the best of what you had, and went through some tough stuff then, but we've overcome it.
Nice. It's good to hear that. And I mean, I know we planned on getting into it. But what we do on this podcast, we don't do stuff in chronological order. So since you brought it up, I kind of want to talk about what's going on right now, what just kind of happened and transpired. What was it, a couple of days ago? And pretty much the domino effect that's had in sports. And I've been listening to a lot of interviews from, obviously LeBron, Doc Rivers, and then I just saw a baseball player from the Mets. I believe it's Dominic Smith, who I played against, kind of going up in the minor leagues, and he was overcome with emotion more than all the other guys I've seen. Have you seen that interview with Dominic?
No, I haven't, but I have seen Doc Rivers. I've seen LeBron's tweet. I've seen Kenny Smith walked off the TNT set yesterday.
I missed that.
Yeah, he walked off and he said, "Whatever happens, happens."
Dang.
So, that was big, stuff like that really, it's affecting people no matter your status, your economic status or who you are. It's still something that weighs on you.
Yeah. And I know Doc said he's reminded every day about his skin color, and, You know, I don't think he was just talking about going in the mirror and looking at it. It's just basically his interactions with, you know, other people is basically constantly reminding him. And I know I saw, you know, LeBron even dropped the F-bomb in an interview. That just shows the frustration of these players because, and I think it was, who did I see? I want to say it was either Malcolm Brogdon, who was front lines protesting in the mist right after George Floyd. And just to see these players taking responsibility, and he basically, it was George Hill. George Hill said, you know what, you know, because he was asked, hey, are you able to even do anything for your communities or anything from Orlando? He goes, no, I don't even know why we came to this place. So, you know, players are frustrated. They feel like they were kind of not used, but they feel like they were kind of, you know, used to take their attention off of the issues when they were trying to bring attention to them. So now they're trying to do that with people canceling or boycotting the game. So the stuff in the NBA is pretty interesting. I mean, did you see that coming, or like what were your thoughts when you started to see that happen?
I mean, obviously, you know, the Jacob Blake shooting there in Wisconsin was different. I mean, we had video, and there was a video of him walking away and, you know, getting shot 7 times in the back in front of his children. You know, whether he was getting in his car to get something or not, you know, personally, I think that maybe they could have tried to stop him prior. And I think that that's why so many people are upset about how things transpired. Because you have him who possibly had a weapon, and then protests rang out, and the athletes, you know, whether it's the NBA, MLB, because some MLB teams have canceled as well, they're like, you know what, we're going to take a stand ourselves. Although we don't have fans here, we have people watching.
Yeah. And
if we don't go out there and play, it's going to get people talking. People are going to wonder why we're not playing. And then when it's told why we're not playing, people will then, you know, maybe have their own conversations as to, all right, well, maybe this is deeper, because these are people with money. These are celebrities that they feel affected too.
Yeah, it's important to realize that. I mean, you know, like you just said minutes ago, you know, economic status, a lot of that stuff does not exclude you. And I did talk previously on the episode with me and one of my good friends, how there is certain situations if people recognize who you are, how you are kind of let off the hook, but then still in that moment, that leaves me thinking, you know, well, what if I wasn't a professional athlete or anything like that? I know Stephen A. Smith brought up something to first of all, before we talk about what he said, what's your opinion of Stephen A. Smith? Do you look up to him as, you know, being someone who overcame a lot of stuff? A lot of people don't know that he used to, you know, he was not able to read. He was illiterate, couldn't speak well. Now you see him, you never would have guessed any of that. So, I mean, what's your, I guess, take on Stephen A. Smith?
I like Stephen A. He is very loud. So that could be overwhelming sometimes, you know. So if I was in his shoes, I'd tell him to calm down the loudness a little bit. But he does a great job with what he does, despite what he's overcome. You know, he lost a brother in a vehicle accident, you know, when they were younger. So he has overcome a lot of adversity, his education. He's gotten to where he is. You know, he started out just covering the NBA. Then he became this prominent sports analyst, this sports reporter for ESPN. But I think he does great. When he talks, people listen. So obviously he's doing something right.
That's true.
When he talks, people are listening to every word he has to say.
That is true. But I will elaborate what he spoke about. So he talked about an instance of him getting pulled over with his daughter, and I think she was 8 at the time. But without going into details about that, before he brought up that story, he talked about the shooter who shot the black people in South Carolina, I believe, who they were inside the church worshiping, and he shot and killed 9 people. There was information that I was not, aware of. I don't know if you were, Josh, but apparently that guy, the shooter, when they tracked him down, obviously they know he had killed 9 people. When they tracked him down, he was not harmed. They actually stopped by McDonald's to get him food because he was hungry.
It was Burger King.
Oh, Burger King, my bad.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you hear about that type of stuff, it's like you knew this guy was dangerous. and there was no story about him getting shot or anything, and you actually kind of went overboard with the service. And then you hear about people who are unarmed. I just know, without being a police officer, without being in that moment, because I know with the tension, everything, I'm assuming cops come into the situation already kind of like, okay, this is an altercation. There's stuff going on in the world. They're kind of on high already. And then the black person is already afraid. So they're trying to not make the wrong move. And when you combine those two, I think it just leads to, stuff which we see in the Jacob Blake. For me, I want to hear from your standpoint, because I know we talked on the phone about an instance that I want to get into after, but just how does that make you feel? And do you think people overlook and they look for ways to compare, cops shoot white people too, or something like that? So, just, talk about that for a little bit.
Well, I hear that argument a lot. And personally, that argument is just to negate, unarmed black men or black women being shot. For example, there was a protest. There was a protest in response to Jacob Blake's shooting, and a 17-year-old kid with an assault rifle, which he shot and killed, 2 people at the protest. He shot and killed 2 people. There's a video of him shooting and killing these people, and he was 100 feet from the cops, and people were yelling out, he just shot those people. He just shot all those people down there. And the police didn't arrest him. The police didn't even acknowledge it. And he was running towards the police with his AR, with his rifle strapped to him. And so that right there, he just committed a heinous act. Whether it was in self-defense or not, he just committed a heinous act. He took the lives of 2 people. And here we are, just letting him walk freely towards the police. And I think that is a lot of the issue with Jacob Blake's shooting. He potentially had a knife on him in his vehicle that he was walking to. Whether he was going to grab that knife or not seems to, we don't know. But he was unarmed when he was shot 7 times in the back. But we had somebody that had just killed a couple people walking towards the cop. So that was different. That's why it doesn't give hope to minorities, to people that have been, maybe in Jacob Blake's shoes before, but not shot. I think I've been profiled before. I'm sure you have. I'm not sure if you've ever had any true encounters like that with police, but it's scary. It really is, because, what if you weren't who you were? What if people here didn't know you? Some of your police stops could have ended differently. Whether you're complying or not. There have been black men just reaching for their wallet and got shot when they were asked to get their identification. So it is scary. It is scary.
Well, quickly, I'm not sure if I shared this on my podcast with Micah when we were talking about the George Floyd issue, because we were both sharing encounters that we've had. And there was a time, and at the time I did not, I think it was 2010 or 2011. I had just been drafted. I'm driving down to spring training in Florida, in Clearwater, Florida. And I'm going through Crisp County, Georgia. And I got pulled over, and it was like, I think I might have been over, I think it was a 60, and I think I was going 70 or something like that. And so I get pulled over, and I'm not thinking anything of it. 2 cops, one approaches from this side, one approaches from that side, and they're like, hey, can you get out of the vehicle? I'm like, okay. And I just get out, not thinking, like, why? Just because I feel like maybe at that point I had been programmed to just think that, okay, listen to the cops, whatever, and not knowing that, why are they searching my car? What is the point? They brought out a dog. All this stuff happened. And yes, I was in a nice vehicle. Windows weren't overly tinted or anything. So, but at that time, I was I was just oblivious to the whole situation. I was just like, okay, yeah, the cops told me to get out of the car. I'll get out. And I go stand behind my car, and, one cop's just watching me, and the other one with the dog is going through my car. And after the fact I'm driving, I continue to drive like what just happened? And that's just one of the encounters that I don't remember at the time, thinking, oh, this is wrong, But now that I think about it, like I was a 21-year-old kid who's leaving college to go play professional baseball, and I just didn't understand what was happening at the time. And it's a crazy thing now that I think about it. But I have had other encounters where, hey, we recognize who you are, and, keep it moving. Yeah. And it's sad, and I do like, oh, thank God, but what happened?
But it is a shame. It is a shame that, because you've built up a reputation, I've built up a reputation, that because people know me, they're going to treat me or you differently. But, your son, when your son grows up, it might not be the same if, they don't know him. And I fear that for my cousins, my own 2 younger brothers. It is scary. But I've had the same thing where I've been pulled over and I've been questioned because I like nice vehicles.
Yeah.
And usually one of the first questions is, well, whose vehicle is this? Is this yours? And it's like, I've been with some of my family, I am biracial. Yeah. I've been with, my white mom or my white grandpa, and they've never been asked that when they've been pulled over. So why do you just assume that this vehicle isn't mine?
I guess that has me think about the time I went to purchase that car in Clearwater, Florida. It was a Lexus GS. So it was a nice sporty car. But it wasn't like some crazy car, it was just nice. And when I went to go purchase it, I came in, like a Jordan shirt, Jordan shorts, and some sneakers. And I walked around the car lot for God knows how long, me and one of my friends who was dressed similar, both black, and just no one ever came up to us. They're not knowing that I just got a signing bonus and I'm trying to buy a car that day.
In cash.
Yes. But they just were, and finally we left, and then we came back the next day or maybe later that night. And finally someone came up to us. It was a black guy, a black salesman for and he said, hey, I seen you guys here earlier. Have you guys been helped? I'm like, no. And we're trying to get a car. Like, I'm sitting here looking at the same car. I'm not just skimming around the whole lot. So he finally is like, all right, well, let's get down to business. I ended up buying the car and completing it like an hour later. So those guys would have had a sale, but but there's a thin line between profiling, selling, because I do that. I prejudge. I look at a building and I'm like, I don't know if they're buying anything, but that's different looking at a building and looking at a human. I guess.
Yes, looking at a human is totally different. Yeah. Totally different.
Okay, so even though I love the NBA, I'm really on the side of them right now. So I mean, were you looking forward to LeBron getting a championship, or you think it's very important? And I'm sure you do, but. Do you see it continuing?
Well, they actually, on my way here, I got an alert that they did vote to continue the season.
Okay.
So the season is going to continue, which is great. Yeah. But, yesterday they made a stand. Yeah. They did take a stand, and, there are reports that LeBron walked out at the late night meeting yesterday because, the Lakers and Clippers, they didn't want to continue the season.
Gotcha.
And we're talking about athletes that have the Lakers or the Clippers, they could easily win the championship this year.
Yeah.
But here they are risking not even winning a championship to shine a light on some of the racial injustices going on right now. So what's going on is bigger than sports. They couldn't care any less about their paychecks. LeBron, he could retire right now and never play a game of basketball in his life. He'll be okay.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where they really don't care about the money. Yeah. It's about showing support for Jacob Blake's family, for Breonna Taylor's family, George Floyd as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's important. I mean, those people who do have economic status, who still may experience the same, I guess, profiling and treatment.
They do.
So, but they realize it's up to them, because some people who might not have the resources like they do aren't able to make a stand or make a change as big as they can. So it's good to see them do that. But yeah, so I guess I did kind of, hop off the horse of let's talk about Jordan Miller. But
I'm sorry.
It was good.
I jumped that gun too. My bad.
It's all good. But where we were talking about, why you chose to be a sports reporter, and stuff like that. So we did talk about you being in Carrollton, getting your dream job super young, which is crazy and amazing. But then what was your path after, getting that job at 19?
So, I was 19 when I got that sports editor job, and I had worked there for, I want to say 2 years, 2 full, academic school years of sports, and TV station WTOV9 there in Steubenville. I had known some of their sports people, and I wanted a shadow. Down there because I didn't know if I wanted to do TV, and that shadowing opportunity turned into me getting a call from their news director. It's like, hey, we have a job opening down here for a videographer. You interested? I'm like, yeah. And at that time, I was only 20. I was so young, I couldn't even drive a news car because I had to be 21 to drive a news car. So my reporters, they were driving me around when I was 20. So, I was, a month or two away from turning 21. But that, I loved it there. Once I got into doing news, I knew that, I wanted to do news over sports. Nice. And I never thought that. And I went from there and, the rest is history.
Okay. So when you say news over sports, when you went from WTOV9, because that's, like you said, that's mainly sports, right? Or no?
No, they do news too.
Okay.
They do a lot of news as well.
And then how did that land you in Cleveland?
I was... All right. So my birthday, my 22nd birthday, I was up in Cleveland for the Cavs playoff game, LeBron's last year. It was game 3 against Toronto, and he hit a fadeaway jumper. And I was there on a Saturday. Well, Sunday, I get a random phone call up from Cleveland, from a station up there. And they had seen my resume, my reel, and they were just interested in, bringing me in. And so that was the day after my 22nd birthday.
Dang.
And they called me in, and I worked there for a year and a half, and I loved it there. I met great people. I had great mentors. And that's, kind of where I started to build up a platform there.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I would still be in TV. I truthfully think I would still be in TV hadn't I been in a motorcycle accident, about it. Almost 2 years into working there.
Okay. So 2 years in, you were around 24. You had a motorcycle accident. Now, obviously, physically, there were some damages done, but
I mean, it took me about 4 months to recover. Okay. And then, right there at the end of it, there was just no going back into TV at that point, just because I wasn't completely recovered. I was left with the TBI, back injuries. So it was a lot. It would have been a lot for me to carry around cameras to go from story to story, be in a vehicle for hours. So it was best that I just stepped away then. Gotcha.
And once you had the accident is when you went back to, the family and stuff in Carrollton?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, where... I don't think we covered it because I know you didn't graduate from Carrollton. You graduated from United Local.
United Local.
Okay.
So, yep.
Sorry.
United Local Eagles. So, I graduated in 2014 from there.
Okay. Thanks. You're young, man.
Yeah.
So, one question I have for you. So, in all your years of school, and I guess a lot at WTOV, at Cleveland, was there any, leaders, that were, minority leaders? Did you have any, Latin or Black teachers or coaches?
I never had a Black coach or a Black teacher. Never.
Wow. Okay.
And, my fiance, she is a teacher. So that was just something that we were talking about the other day. She's teaching younger kids. I said, have you ever had a Black teacher? And she said, no, not in elementary, middle school, college, or high school. And she never had a Black person of influence in her life, that would educate them.
Other than, entertainers.
Her family. Well, entertainers and her family.
Yeah. So what I would like to share is I had what she called herself is a petite powerhouse. Now, she was my college professor for project management, and she called me Uncle Percy, but she has been the only, to this day, I'm probably getting this wrong, but as far as I know, she has been the only minority or black teacher or professor that I've had. I've had being exposed to professional baseball, though. We have, Latin coaches, and to have a black coach, I don't think I have. And our conversation was more about, obviously this gives us and other minorities confidence that they can be in these leadership positions. But when you grow up without one, it kind of you're not knowingly thinking about it when you're younger. But as we grow older, then we start to realize obviously our ambitions take over. You've been able to be successful. But it's just for the average, kid, I just think it's really important to be able to have some kind of representation in that platform, in those roles, to make an impact. And I know you agree with that.
Oh,
and your wife, kind of starting that trend.
Say, don't jump the gun. Woo! Do not jump the gun. Don't jump the gun.
Is she gonna hear this?
She might, and I would tell her the same thing.
That's awesome. Now, did you meet her in high school?
No, so I just graduated high school from United, and she was going into her junior year at Carrollton.
Okay.
But her and my little sister, they cheered together.
Okay.
She spotted me before I spotted her. So
I love it. So is she going to be teaching at Carrollton?
Minerva.
Oh, Minerva.
So, and Minerva is a great community. I've grown to love Minerva. These last few years especially, but she did her student teaching there. She's a Mount Union graduate.
Okay.
She did her student teaching at Minerva, and she loved everything about Minerva.
Okay.
So they just officially hired her 2 weeks ago, maybe.
Nice.
And, we had got our house based on hopefully her getting a job at Minerva. So it all worked out. It all worked out once they officially gave her that phone call.
Nice. I did some work in Minerva, and it's to me, it reminds me of, basically home. So it's very similar. But yeah, so I kind of want to get into your social media presence. So you got way more followers than I do, so I'm curious. But what made you said in 2018 you made like the obviously you probably had a Facebook, your personal Facebook before that?
I did have a personal Facebook.
Gotcha.
And it was a personal Facebook, but I would post my news right to that personal Facebook.
Okay.
So that became overwhelming because there's some people that followed that Facebook just for family pictures and stuff.
Gotcha.
So I decided one day I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to just go out on a limb, create a news Facebook page for myself. I created that. The first night it had 600 page likes.
Dang.
That night. And, of course, a lot of them were followers of my personal page and whatnot. It's blown up since then.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. We're about to hit 26,000 follows on the page.
Okay. And I know we were talking like, what does that really mean on Facebook? But I would say 26,000 followers on Facebook is the same as 26,000 on Twitter and Instagram.
It is.
But you have around the same amount of likes. So a lot of people are interested in what Jordan Miller has to say.
Yes. Whether they like it or not. And I do strictly keep it news related. I throw some family stuff in there as well. But I have a platform, and yes, I do talk about police brutality a lot, but I have a lot of police officer friends. I was texting one this morning, and I was speaking on the phone with the employee at the U.S. Marshals on my drive here.
Okay.
So I have nothing at all against the police, but my followers, if I do a story that maybe doesn't shine in the best light on police or anyone, they just assume automatically
that you're grouping them all in.
Yeah, that I am grouping them all in, and it's not like that at all.
You're just reporting what happened, right?
Yes. And the viewer, the reader, they take their own information from that, and whether they agree with the facts or not. At the end of the day, they're still facts.
Oh, I like it. I'm gonna take that with me. That's awesome, man. I've always kind of wondered the process of, someone who's involved in news and reporting. And you would say your strong point is the writing part, or if you still could be in front of a camera, do you think that would be ideal? Obviously, with the motorcycle accident, it doesn't, it's not really beneficial.
I mean, it would be, and that's the nice part about doing the social media thing is, if I want to hop on a Facebook Live, I can.
Nice.
If I want to set up a tripod and do a live or put together a little story, I can still do that.
Nice.
So that part is nice, but social media, the news is just ever changing. How it was done 15 years ago is totally different than how it is done now.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to just put it out right there. It's all factual. It's all accurate information that people can just gather right there and they can share. And then I usually like to provide the follow-ups to go with it.
Nice. So what's your favorite type of, I guess, way to get it out there? Do you love going Facebook Live, or do you ever record stuff and then post it?
I do love going Facebook Live, but only when it permits it.
Okay.
If I'm sitting at home and I'm gathering news there, rarely will I ever go Facebook Live. But if I'm out at a scene, out at a story, then that obviously does permit that live presence, that showing what's happening in the here and now.
Nice.
But what I like to do is I like to gather my info. COVID has really taught me that Zoom is a beneficial tool because you can just record right there. So I'll set up my computer. I'll do a Zoom call with someone, record it, and do the little editing right then and there, put it out on my page. And that is really beneficial. People love that. I see people have gravitated towards that too.
Nice. That's good. I mean, we sort of do something like that. I don't know what Magic Josh does behind the scenes, but we I just expanded into the virtual space. Now, I love you coming in. We obviously probably prefer this just because there's less variables, as we spoke earlier when this interview started. But being able to have that feature, and I love that Josh started. I don't know who you started it with. Was it the Big Brother Big Sister podcast? Was that the first time? So I'm glad he was able to. To get that, because there was a lot of guests I wanted to have on, that are in California, and a lot of my teammates, and hopefully we can get some, or ex-teammates. I don't play anymore. We can get some other teammates of mine that are out of state on. So Zoom is good, even though I think it's having a little issue right now. But I know Microsoft Teams is trying to step in and be that go-to. But I mean, that's part of COVID.
It is.
Zoom and all of them, they wouldn't have had all this, all these customers, I guess, if it wasn't for COVID. So good for them. I did want to, I guess, talk about like the future, what you think the future looks like for you, for Jordan Miller, not the Philly quarterback, but the news reporter. Every time I say his name, it's just nightmares in my head of him throwing a touchdown. But just Jordan Miller, like, what is your goals and what do you see happening, I guess, for the foreseeable future?
I want to continue to put out the accurate information, whether it's, officer involved shootings, which they're unfortunate, but they still need to be reported on. And so I want to be able to continue to grow my page and report on the things that need to be reported on, whether, it is unfortunate fatal shootings, but as well as the lift me up stories as well. I would like to get back into TV someday. But what I'm doing on social media, as well as, with some local papers and affiliates, that right now is, beneficial as well.
Good.
But I would like to be one of those people that does make a difference, journalism wise. It does make a difference and makes people want to, trust journalism again, because a lot of people don't. And in a way, I can understand where some people are coming from. I'm not going to go out and say that all journalism is factual, because if you're looking for an answer one way, you can watch one or the other kind of news sources and get whatever answer you want in the way that you want it. So I want to kind of be that voice of reason that people can maybe relate to a little bit more on a professional, but more importantly, a personal level, because people, I am very open. I've talked about, my accidents. I've talked about my family, some of the dark times in my family's lives. And I think people can actually relate to that.
Yeah. I know you said that even on the phone, but I hesitate a little bit getting in, and I'll get into whatever happened to me. I don't really care sharing that. And I know you were open, but there were some things that I was just like, I don't know too much about in your passing growing up. I know you went through some things, but if there's anything you wanted to share, you're okay too. But if there's not, that's fine as well. But if there was anything while we were talking that just popped in your head, and you're like, ooh, I kind of want to share that.
One thing, a lot of people think that a lot of people who don't know me, who just follow me and don't follow me for any personal reasons or whatever, they just think that I did have a perfect upbringing, and that by far is not the truth. My mom had me at 16. So my mom's my best friend. And, right now she's in the medical field, and she's actually over in the Virgin Islands working. Wow. As a nurse, and so is her twin sister. She's down in Georgia working on COVID units. I think part of the reason that my mom is so close was, she did go through, domestic violence for 12 years. She was young, and I was not a fan of who she lived with, who she was dating. And, so we saw some stuff that, my siblings and I, no kid should ever see. And me being the oldest, I didn't want to be around it. So thankfully, my mom allowed me to go live with her parents in DC. So that's how I got to DC originally. And then my grandparents, they really had a big vital role into keeping me on the right path. And so, seeing what my mom went through made me know that I'm never going to put my hands on a woman. I'm never going to, violence is never the answer, no matter the gender.
Yeah.
But I'm never going to put my hands on a woman. And, seeing my mom go through that stuff, and, now my mom's a totally different person than she was 10 years ago, but it was a big learning curve for her. So, that's just one of those things, domestic violence. I'm going to make sure that I keep that, when hopefully I do have a daughter, I'm going to have that conversation with her too. I don't want her to feel alone. I don't want her to feel as if she doesn't have anyone in her corner and that she needs to hide anything that's going on.
Yeah. Sounds like we got a lot in common.
Yeah. Not to get too personal or too dark, but, my mom, I love her. I love my whole family. My grandparents, they raised me, but, my mom, she definitely, even though it was a terrible thing to go through, it made her into who she is today. I never thought my mom would get remarried, and she got remarried, and I love my stepdad, and he's been around 5 years now. And, she went from a guy like her ex who, abused women to a pastor. So, who would ever
A little bit of a turnaround.
A little bit of a turnaround. I love my stepdad, and I love that he treats my mom the way that she should be treated.
Yeah.
Because my dad treated her great, and then, so-and-so, and then, my stepdad, he's really stepped up.
Yeah. Yeah. I had similar experience. And the thing you should probably show your daughter is the movie Enough by Jennifer Lopez.
I'll have to look it up. I don't think I've seen it.
It's old. I want to say 2002.
I was 6. I
wasn't. But it's definitely a good movie, and it's about domestic violence. Right. And I'm not necessarily saying your daughter should take the path J-Lo did, but it's a great movie. It's a great movie.
Okay.
But yeah, I hope to have a conversation with my daughter too, just to be, hey, you're beautiful. You don't deserve any terrible treatment, and hopefully the biggest thing you can do is to show her how a man treats a woman, by treating your wife the right way. And I try, I'm gonna have Krista on here and my wife one of these days, and I guess she'll get to share you guys how I really treat her. But no, I mean, I appreciate you coming on the show. If there's anything else to share you want to talk about, we can. But, you know, I feel like what you shared already has been great, and it's going to, you know, inspire and help people. And I look forward to following your page now. I'm about to be one of the followers and the likers on there. So I'm going to see what you got going on over there. So I'm very interested in, you know, just because, you know, especially if you got any videography skills, because, you know, I'm starting to get in that boat a little bit.
I have a couple. I might have to hire you as a freelance for a little bit.
Okay.
No, but I appreciate you having me. And, you know, I just want to make a comment that, you know, our police are under a lot of scrutiny, you know, whether they're good or bad. You know, they are under a lot of scrutiny, but a majority of them are great officers. I don't think anyone should take that away from the good officers. You shouldn't let the bad police officers make the good ones look bad, as well as you know, a couple of things that maybe some black people do shouldn't stereotype all of us.
Yep.
But it does, and that's just the world we live in. And you know, today, the U.S. Marshals here in Ohio, they actually announced that, you know, they recovered 25 children that were, you know, part of maybe human trafficking, endangered, whatnot. And, you know, I think that that's just a great thing that they did. And, you know, without our police, we wouldn't have that.
Yes.
We wouldn't have them cracking down on these things to keep our children safe. So I do, you know, really appreciate them, you know, for things like that. You know, I want to be able to call the police if something's going on at my house or if I'm in danger. But I want to make sure if I'm the one calling the police that I'm not the one dying at the end of the phone call.
Yeah, true. Powerful words, man. And I agree. Yeah, I think you have a podcast that's going to talk about human trafficking and stuff like that. So it's good to hear good news about it, because it's literally the last few years it's all been bad. So, and that's good that they've uncovered. And there was actually a guy I came up playing with the minor leagues against, a pitcher for the Tigers. I can't remember his first name. I want to say his name is Boyd, though. He's a left-handed pitcher. Him and his wife were, you know, they have a foundation that's about rescuing, you know, these people that are in human trafficking, and more importantly, I think the women, and just helping them get back, you know, from that. Because obviously that, you know, everybody thinks about the physical damage that it does, but more of that is, you know, what's going on up here and how that kind of just messes with your psyche from then on. So I do like to congratulate him for doing that.
You notice when, you know, that picture right there uses his platform, you know, for sex trafficking, for, you know, maybe, you know, children that go missing, whatnot. Nobody says anything. Nobody says, oh, well, we have to keep, you know, that out of our sports. But then when it's race related, because those are awkward conversations.
Yeah.
And so that is why sports, they really move the needle.
They do.
They do. Whether you like it or not, they're awkward conversations. And, you know, thankfully I'm surrounded by people who I can have these awkward conversations with. And, you know, there are people, I say things they don't want to hear. They say things I don't want to hear. And we have these conversations, but at the end of the day, we're both better people because we are all on the same page. So I just think that that's a tip that everyone should know or everyone should take is, don't be afraid to have these conversations. Have them with people who really need to hear them. If they feel uncomfortable, that's whatever. If they stop being your friend or they don't talk to you, at least now you know how they really feel.
Yeah.
Because if you hide behind a mask, you know, no pun intended for 2020 or anything, but if you do hide behind it and you don't say anything, you'll never know how some people really feel until they slip up saying it.
Yeah, we talked about that.
We did. Until they slip up saying it, whether on live television or in a car with you at a party or in a social media post.
Yeah.
So
I forgot about that. I wanted to mention that, but I'm pretty sure everybody's aware. But nah, man, again, I appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and I am looking forward to following your page now. And, you know, maybe you know, you get a podcast of your own. I don't know.
Maybe. I won't have a setup like this though. This is pretty impressive. So,
well, I don't own it, so I mean, you could use it if you wanted. But no, Jordan Miller, everybody. Episode will be live Tuesdays. What else? All right, we're going to the outro. This is my outro where I talk about how bad my outro is. We're just going to keep that going. But no, I do appreciate everybody listening on all platforms, no matter what. If it's YouTube, no matter what it is, we appreciate every listener. All the feedback we get, it's fun. I get to learn. If this podcast didn't exist, I probably would have never met or known anything about Jordan on a personal level. So that's kind of why I started this podcast secretly, you know. So it's not really the cat's out of the bag. I say it every end of podcast. So, but hopefully you have a safe drive home. And like I said, I'm looking forward to, you know, hearing what you got to say next. And hopefully we figure out a solution to this craziness right now.
Hopefully we do, you know, 2020. So hopefully
to everything.
Yes.
But yeah, we appreciate everything. And we'll see you, I guess, next episode. Peace.
It feels like Casablanca. Shawty, you my little mama. I got a crib by the water. Say me Casa su casa. It feels like Casablanca. Shawty, you my little mama. She be on that Henny.